Well, Mom was worried, of course, as you would expect. I think Dad was kind of pleased that I decided to join the Navy. And he certainly didn't show any concern, really. He was glad that I joined the Navy, I think. Yeah.
So that's it.
I guess I started in high school, so I must have been about 16 or so. And in a small town, I thought she was a pretty great girl, and she was. And we eventually, well, I joined the Navy before I got married. When I got in the Navy and knew that I was, and finally after training, knew that I was going overseas, well, and then had leave before going overseas, so turned and got married before I went overseas. And her father used to keep saying, "Mary," that was her name, "Mary, you know that he might not come back." And she said she knew that, but she wanted to marry me anyway, so that was good. Well, I was very lucky. When I joined up, I went into the training as a probationary sub-lieutenant. I didn't have to go and do the kind of work that an ordinary sailor does aboard ship and all that sort of thing. So I went down to Hamilton, HMCS Star, and used to travel back and forth from Fergus one night a week for a few months, and then eventually I was going to say conscripted, but not really. But the time came for me to go to training, so I went down to Hamilton and trained there for a month, and then we went to Halifax. Well, we went to sea, you know, and learned all the nautical things that we had to do. We had gunnery training. We had to learn Morse code. We had 4 months of training, and it wasn't until the end that we were assigned to whatever section of the Navy that they wanted to send us to. And then the initial boat that I was on was not an MTB, it was a Fairmile, which is a small boat too, small boat, and and I picked it up in Halifax, and we went over to Newfoundland, St. John's, and worked out of Newfoundland, supposedly searched for submarines, and we had radar, of course, and so we had that, and so we worked out that. I worked there for about, well, I went there in the end of August one year, whatever it was, and was there until the end of December. And during that time is when I said I had leave and got married. And then at the end of December, I was selected to go to England and train on a motor torpedo boat. That's the boat I was on, 459. Louis Pasteur, that's the name it was. And we were assigned to a certain section aboard the ship, and we were on duty 4 hours at a time, and 4 hours on, 4 hours off. And all we did there was look out, just looking out for anything we could see. And nothing happened on my trip across the ocean, so I can't do anything more than that. Play card, mostly. No, we were in the city, right in the city. Liverpool. Well, we went into barracks for a while till they decided where we were going to go, and that was all right. It bunks, 3-tier high, some of them. No, they were good and clean at that time anyway. Early part of the war. You know.
What was the food like in the barracks?
Good. It was good. No complaints at all about that. Primarily the use of sonar and determining what we had to do with the sonar to detect a submarine. And we had practice. We did some practice on our motor torpedo boats and practice runs to go after submarines. In a place in Wales, that's where we did what we called our workups in Wales. And we would go out at times and have to shoot at a target with our guns, and then they would somehow arrange to have something underwater so that it would sound like a submarine. The sonar would pick it up, and we'd have to go to that area where the sound was. I went to friends in London. I met a good friend while I was in training, who was from Winnipeg. He eventually became a lawyer and a member of Parliament after the war. But he and I used to go and visit his aunt, Aunt Daisy. It was just sort of like being home. It felt great. She was wonderful, and she was a good cook, and she used to give me hell because I didn't clean my socks enough. We used to do our own laundry, but we had this machines there to do the laundry in the washing machine. In Scarlet Road in London, outskirts of London. And every time we were on leave, we would meet there. But we often we were just there one at a time, because we didn't have leave necessarily the same time as I had, because he was on a different boat. And we know that following the newspaper, particularly newspapers, we knew what the army was doing for the most part. We knew what Hitler and his troops were doing. So we pretty well kept up to date and knew what was going on. Well, June the 6th was D-Day, was it not? Yeah. And we would have known, I guess, 3 or 4 months before that there was going to be something take place. We didn't know what it was then, but we knew that, and so we were training regularly. We went out from port and target practice and that sort of thing, and dropping depth charges, which is Juno Beach, and we got maps. This is rather interesting. This is just the night before the invasion. All the maps had to be redone. The charts we got new charts aboard. We were all set to go initially using the charts that we were given. But the night before, boom, all of a sudden, all were changed. I guess they were concerned that there might have been somebody spying and alerting the Germans as to what was happening and where we were going. We had to correct all our charts and our maps and that sort of thing the night before we went. It was terrible. And going across on D-Day, it was really rough, and our boats weren't very big, 71 feet 6 inches long, and I fortunately was up on deck most of the time, which is a good thing. Or if I'd been below decks like the crew in the engine room, I'd have been sicker than a dog. But the trip across was interesting. Interesting because overhead we could see hundreds of planes flying, in the same direction as we were going, only we were going slower, of course. But I never saw so many planes in all my life as during the invasion. And I never saw as many ships. We were just a small part of the flotilla that went across, you know. And we didn't know where we were going. We knew where we were going. We were going to a mothership, HMS Scylla, Scylla, I think. And we didn't know whereabouts it was, but just a general idea of where it was. So when we got across there, we finally were able to locate the HMS Scylla, and that's where we worked. It was what we called our mothership, and we worked there. They gave us all the orders as to what we were to do.